military person situated close to the Finnish border when the Second World War started. We talked about this now and then. I will always remember him and his closing mass in the parish and also the dinner afterwards. Some of his siblings were there. It was unique and memorable for a young person like me. He was 65 years old and I was 27, but his father was the Archbishop Nathan Söderblom, born in 1866, died in 1931, who was, during the first 3 decades of the 20th century, one of the Western world's most daring and influential figures, significant both as a university professor, theologian, and church leader. He established the holy as the concept of religion, and he started a new era in the church relationship to each other through the ecumenical meeting in Stockholm in 1925. From the beginning of the First World War, he engaged himself for peace and humanitarian aid, and was also awarded for this with the Nobel Prize in 1930. Anyway, I went to my bookshelf and I found the booklet, and I took a photo from the book of the Greek Orthodox Patriarch together with the Archbishop of Sweden from 1925 at the first ecumenical meeting in Stockholm. I placed the photo into the Facebook page and understood that there was a continuing discussion at that page, although I didn't understand the language. After some time, it was confirmed that it was the Greek Patriarch Photios that also visited the first Christian ecumenical gathering in Stockholm. In November that same autumn, 2014, a national newspaper in Sweden, Dagens Nyheter, had an article with exactly the same photo as in the memorial book. At that point, I began to pay attention in a different way. There was going to be a 100-year anniversary of the year 1914 to 2014 for this Archbishop of Uppsala. I also understood at the time that another bishop, Jonas Jonsson, would have an introduction session with the name Facing the Future. For me, all the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, and I knew what the 50-year anniversary of our association would be all about this time, namely Facing the Future. Facing the Future is also the title of our anniversary book and the theme of this conference. And of course, I also asked the Bishop Jonas Jonsson for his permission to use his heading from his session to be the theme for our conference. Well, he said yes. Today, 3 years later, life and existence is rapidly changing before our eyes, also as it was during the time when the Archbishop was pushing for ecumenism. In all times, people are facing the future as well as we are. An unknown future is always emerging in front of us. Today, when so many people are in movement from everywhere in the world, in a time where polarization of different sort is becoming more visible at all continents, and war has taken a grip over life in a large part of the Arabic-speaking countries, and when threats and terrors has become recurring events and war is talked about every day now. We have to ask ourselves if the time has come for more ecumenical and also interfaith dialogue. Today, some people even say that we are facing a shift of paradigm in a perhaps similar way as in 1925, when the first ecumenical meeting was held in Stockholm. We can also ask ourselves as airport chaplains, what is our common experience of the ecumenical and interfaith teamwork? What is happening in sometimes brief meetings between people from different nationalities, cultures, religions, and traditions at different airports? What can the space in between different faiths and religions tell us from an ecumenical or an interfaith perspective? The anniversary book shares stories from airport chaplains in everyday work. Maybe we can find out something from these stories. Thank you, all of you that have sent in stories from your airport to the anniversary book. In 2014, there was another book called Nathan Söderblom and His Time, published. It was written by Dietz Langer, Professor Emeriti in Systematic Theology at the University of Göttingen, Germany. He says that Söderblom wanted to approach the essence of religion, and he said that the science of religions and theology is kept together of what separates them, namely the insight that the sacred has an unimaginable character. He summarizes this in the pregnant formula that humanity in all times has been under influence of the holy, and at the same time inaccessible, yet an unavoidable divine reality. Söderblom's key word is the holy, the concept that constitutes his most important scientific insight in religion, avant la lettre. This is the center of his thinking. He argued in the question of the holiness that in religions without scriptures, the holy had a specific meaning. He took a decisive step and explained the holy as the central concept. He says that the role of the holiness is life-giving and the foundation of communities. Fear comes from the holy, but also blessings. Söderblom was first to use the concept, the holy, in a specific religious meaning with reference to all religions. In his pastoral letter, he laid the foundation for his ecumenical theory about the Church. In principle, that perspective is openness for a unity movement. Professor Lange writes that Söderblom's way of thinking managed to unite the deepest religious and ethical seriousness with a practical sense and openness to the world. Söderblom believes that the loss of the religious dimension means the fall of culture. Lange continues and says, Söderblom was a model in his time, and he still is, more than 100 years later. To us, as airport chaplains, his courage is an example, and his thoughts can be used in our time also for analyzing our work wherever we are situated around the world. Today's text, read by the Dean, has the heading Fellow Human Being. It tells about a way of approaching each other that also makes the holy come to life in practice. To dare to look at and respond to our fellow beings and all living things as something that carries, if only an ounce of holiness within itself, changes everything. At Arlanda today, some people still remembers and talk about the way that the airport chaplains approached and responded in connection to the tsunami in 2004. I am so grateful to be a part of this work, to learn every day, and to be able to greet you all welcome, and wherever you are traveling and perhaps experience some sort of concern or distress somewhere at an airport around the world. Remember the approach and the response of airport chaplains. Today, our prayers go to all people, flying staff and passengers, and especially this day our thoughts are with all the people that has been and are exposed to the hurricanes in the US. I am also only Uni put to service. God bless you all.